The waves beneath Dragonstone were black glass, unbroken, except where moonlight painted silver scratches across their surface. Rhaenys Targaryen stood on the gallery above the stone drum's courtyard, hands braced against cold Merlon, the wind teasing strands of silver-gold hair loose from her braid. 10 years had passed since Melissa's war. 9 since the crowned stag trampled her brother's line into dust, and still the castle smelled of salt and ash and the iron ghosts of her murdered kin. Time, the maesters insisted, dulled every hurt. They had never heard a dragon's last scream, nor watched it gutter out in smoke over the trident. She heard it every time sleep dared take her. Behind her, Visenya's footsteps were near Oxaland, yet the older sister needed no caution. Rhaenys knew the cadence as surely as she knew her own pulse. Visenya moved like a blade, lean, precise, forged in the same flames that had birthed their dragons. Her voice, when it came, was softer than the wind, but it carried the weight of high tide. Stormcloud is restless. Rhaenys looked to the sky where the youngest of their 3 surviving dragons circled. Stormcloud's pale underside flashed each time he banked against the moon. A living ghost of Meraxes, slain by the Dornish, and of Rhaenys' namesake ancestor who had once ridden that great titan. She laid a gloved palm on the cold stone, and let herself feel the tremor of draconic hunger reverberate through bond and bone. "He smells war coming," she said. "Or perhaps he only mirrors my mood." Visenya's mouth quirked. "If dragons mirrored yours, sister, half the world would be aflame, and the other half drowned beneath dragon-wrought storm. Is that worry I hear?" Observation. Worry implies doubt. Visenya touched Rhaenys' shoulder. The gesture was rare enough to be precious. "We have the strength. The realm merely waits to learn it." Rhaenys studied her sister's face. The scar that crossed Visenya's lip, the faint purple bruise below one eye where arrow splinter had struck during their escape from the Dornish marches. Survival had carved both of them into harder stuff. Yet beneath the warrior's mask, Visenya's eyes still blazed true Valyrian violet, twin candles burning against encroaching dark. "Brother would have called us reckless," Rhaenys murmured. "Ares called wildfire wisdom." Visenya shrugged. "Let the dead keep their counsel." Below, the courtyard gates opened with a groan. Sir Meryn Celtigar stepped out, torch in hand, its orange bloom small against the night's expanse. Even at this distance, his crimson cloak was plain, blood over bone-white armor etched with crabs. Loyalty, Rhaenys thought, could not be bought by coin or fear. Only purpose paved that road, and grief sealed the stones. The Celtigar heir had lost father and brother on the trident. His sword belonged to vengeance now. He raised the torch thrice, quick strokes. The signal. Visenya's hand left Rhaenys' shoulder. She was already turning. "They're here," she said. The secret hall beneath the stone drum tasted of old smoke and seawater. 50 lords, knights, sell-sails and liar sons. Huddled at 3 long tables, their breath a ghost fog in torchlit gloom. They glanced up as the sisters entered. Chairs scraped stone, wine stilled. Some knelt. Others merely bowed heads, too raw for pageantry, but not so raw as to forget who led them. Rhaenys chose to stand rather than claim the chair at the head. Let them see the mud on her boots, the wear at her leather cuffs. Queens who shared blood with dragons had little use for velvet when the world forgot their name. "You've all read the letters," she began. Her voice, unused to halls anymore, rang hard. "Storm's End declares for the stag. The Reach fattened on summer grain and forgets the price of rebellion. And the North," she let the silence speak of Winterfell's cold courtesy. "Yet we hold Dragonstone. We hold 3 dragons full grown and 2 younglings ready for saddle by next summer. We hold every ship that still flies a crowned dragon at masthead. And," she let herself breathe once, "and we hold each other. That is enough. No cheers. No clatter of gauntlets. Only listening." Visenya moved up beside her, arm's length away, but near enough that Rhaenys felt the hum of contained flame between them. "You speak of dragons," said Cobrain of Mistwood, his beard salt-flecked, though he was hardly 30. "Dragons did little for Rhaegar." Pain pricked, sharp and familiar. Rhaegar's burned armor, Robert's hammer rising over shattered helm, memory etched in molten lines. She mastered the tremor before it reached her mouth. Rhaegar fought a single battle. She answered, on a river chosen by his enemy. He fought with one purpose, to take the crown. We mean to take the realm. She paced, cloak brushing flagstone, piece by piece if need be. We start where Robert's grip is weakest, and our flame may grow strongest. A murmur rippled. They knew the map as she did. King's Landing bristled with Baratheon banners, yet its people starved beneath Littlefinger's tariffs and the crown's debts. The Reach sun warmed fertile fields but gilded the coffers of Mace Tyrell. And in the Stormlands, the lords remembered Orys Baratheon's conquest of Argilac. A wound never fully scarred. Rhaenys raised a hand. Quiet returned. Driftmark's ravens report dissension at Storm's End. Lord Bryce Baratheon, Robert's cousin, said Maester Renfred, thin as a quill, but twice removed from succession, chafes under the king's levies. Shipbuilders idle for want of gold. Kingsguard ride roughshod over his borders. Offer him trade, grain, and one dragon overhead at dusk, and he will open his gates. Visenya finally spoke, her voice low thunder. And when Storm's End falls, the marchers will remember their old scorn for stag antlers. The trident bleeds still. Its widows whisper our name when night is long. The Riverlords rebelled once for love. They will rebel again for justice. Sir Meryn Celtigar banged his gauntlet on the table. Justice is a sweet word for vengeance, but I'll drink it. So will we all, Rhaenys thought, though we pretend wine. Hold your oaths until dawn, she told them. Those unwilling may depart unharmed. Those who remain, kneel at sunrise. We sail on the evening tide. Bah! Visenya found her on the terrace again before first light, the sky paling like a bruise's edge. Dragons roosted along the battlements, Stormcloud foremost, scales pearl gray, Nymeria, bronzed and wicked of horn, and old Syraxes, his scarred wings furling inward to shroud sleep. Beyond, the hatchlings shrieked in their pit, demanding meat. You spoke well, Visenya said. Rhaenys laughed, a breath misty in dawn air. I spoke fear clothed in hope. We have 2 Escor banners. Robert commands 20,000, and the love of half the realm. Nan so. Love sours faster than milk. Visenya rested elbows on the parapet. And Stannis commands 1/3 of those men. Stannis will not march until his ledgers allow. He is pinchpurse even in war. I remember him at Dragonstone. Rhaenys said softly. A boy grieving his parents, besieged by men who once swore to defend him. She rubbed gloved fingers together. Sometimes I think all of us have been besieged our entire lives. Visenya's shrug was armor against reflection. Then we learned to break sieges. They watched sunrise bleed across the narrow sea. The dragons stirred, scaling towers in lazy arcs. Rhaenys could almost believe she was a girl again, riding Meraxes above fertile fields yet unburned. Almost. Do you ever fear we are the same as him? She asked. Fire and blood to answer insult. An eye for a kingdom. Where does justice end and Eris begin? Visenya's gaze never left the eastern horizon. Justice ends where mercy is wasted. Easy words for you. You never saw Father's face the day he ordered Rickard Stark burned. No, Dot. I saw our mother's face. She knew he had already left her, long before wildfire touched flesh. Visenya's fist closed on air. We are not Father Rhaenys. We are not Rhaegar. Fair and doomed. We stand because we lived where others died. That is reason enough. Rhaenys touched her sister's hand, felt tension like drawn steel. Then let us not squander the gift. A horn sounded from the lower yard. One long note. Sail call. Time, Visenya said. Rhaenys nodded. Time. They descended stone steps 2 at a stride, mantles flaring. Below, men assembled. Bright banners bearing seahorse, crab, and the red 3-headed dragon long thought extinct. Galleys bobbed at mooring, black hulls trimmed in crimson, sails furled for quick release. Amid the bustle, the dragons leapt from parapets. Wingbeats a thunder that stole breath. Stormcloud led, scream echoing across the keep. Nymeria followed, tail lashing salt spray. Syrax's lumbered risen last, but his shadow dwarfed them both. Kneel, Rhaenys had commanded, and kneel they did. One by one the captains drew swords, their reflections dancing in dragonfire shimmer cast by sunrise. Oaths rolled like distant surf, carried to the sisters upon wind. To the true blood of Valyria, to Rhaenys first of her name, to Visenya the unbroken. Visenya's hand found Rhaenys again, squeezing once before she stepped forward to claim the words with silence. Rhaenys let the chorus wash over her, filling spaces grief had hollowed. When it ended, she lifted her voice. Rise, and remember every burn, every lash, every coin stolen from your tables to feed a king grown fat on borrowed honor. Remember, but do not be ruled by it. We take back the realm piece by piece. If we must burn, we burn only what must never rise again. Now, shh. Stormcloud shrieked as if answering. Sails unfurled, ropes creaked. The sea accepted keels with a hiss. And Dragonstone, cradle of dragons and exile both, receded behind them like the memory of a wound. They sailed under cloud-choked skies that turned the narrow sea into a sheet of hammered pewter. Stormcloud and Nymeria flew wide circles ahead, scouting. Syrax's glided higher, conserving strength. Rhaenys spent each dusk on deck with charts and lead-weighted quills, marking tides, currents, shoals, every measure that might shave hours off their passage. Around her, the men spoke in low tones of Robert's court, of wine flowing like water, of tourneys funded with coin scraped from common folk, of a king who laughed too loud because silence carried ghosts. Visenya drilled the archers. Her eye saw weaknesses the way other women saw color. A sagging bowstring earned rebinding. A lazy elbow found itself corrected by the flat of her sword. Discipline, she believed, was the straightest road to survival. Rhaenys agreed, though she tempered drill with song at night, coaxing weary throats to remember the old ballads. A host that sings, she had once heard, fears battle less. On the fourth day, a gull cried from the mast. Land, dight, dee. Fingers of gray stone rose from fog. Shipbreaker Bay, where storms were born and storm's end stood eternal against them. The fortress was a silent hulk on the horizon, too distant for detail. Yet its legend weighed the air. But they did not steer for its main harbor. Instead, they cut northward toward a hidden cove known to smugglers alone. Tides churned white over submerged rocks. Only Rhaenys' careful soundings guided them through. When the first keel scraped coarse sand, the men exhaled as one. Night cloaked their disembarkation. Dragons landed last, wings folding like banners furled. Stormcloud hissed at the unfamiliar shore. Nymeria snorted steam. Syrax's merely rumbled deep as earthshift, as though amused that any castle believed itself impregnable. Rhaenys' boots sank ankle-deep in wet sand. She inhaled brine, pine, and distant lightning. The march inland would be swift. 2 hours through twisted cliff paths to the postern Bryce Baratheon's letters promised. If the lordling yielded true, Storm's End would open without blood. If not, her hand rested on Stormcloud's warm scale. If not, dragons would speak. Visenya's eyes gleamed under hood. Ready? Always. Moon shone through broken cloud as they reached the postern. An iron-banded gate set into sheer stone, hidden by a natural overhang. Torches flared beyond its bars. 2 men emerged, cloaks half-concealing golden stags. When they knelt, Rhaenys felt the coil of tension in her belly loosen. The taller spoke. Lord Bryce bids welcome. My lady queens. His voice wavered on the honorific, but steadied. The garrison is yours. The Castellan waits in the round hall. Rhaenys noted Visenya's faint nod. Trust but verify. They entered single file, boots echoing in narrow passage. The inner yard lay quiet. Only a half company of guards massed at stables, under flickering torchlight. Most wore Bryce's personal badge, a crowned thunderbolt, rather than the crowned stag of Robert. Crossbowmen lined the ramparts, aimed outward, not inward. A good sign. Within the round hall, a long table groaned beneath roast fowl and fresh bread still steaming. Bryce Baratheon waited at its head. He rose, round-shouldered, eyes shadowed like a man who slept too seldom. "Your Grace," he began. Rhaenys raised a hand. "Lady Rhaenys will suffice until crown and realm are one." He inclined. "I cannot kneel where spies may watch, but my heart bends easy. Robert's war left my coffers empty. Debt breeds loyalty thinner than parchment." He gestured to the spread. 8. "Pet. Then tell me your plan." Visenya circled the hall, studying tapestries, exits, sightlines. Bryce tracked her warily. Rhaenys admired his caution. A man who feared deserved life. They ate standing, quick bites washed with watered wine. Conversation flowed like a second, sharper feast. "The king has recalled half the garrison to King's Landing," Bryce said. "Storm's End keeps 800 men. They trust me. Others answer to Sir Eldon Estermont, named Castellan last month. He arrives in 2 days. 2 days is forever," Visenya said. "We strike at dawn." Bryce's brows lifted. "My lady, dawn is enough," Rhaenys decided. "We cannot risk Estermont's arrival. He would smell treachery before he crossed the drawbridge." She laid the plan. Bryce would summon his loyal men to the yard under pretense of drill. Visenya's archers would already occupy the inner battlements disguised in Baratheon cloaks. Rhaenys would fly Stormcloud above, silhouetted by sunrise, symbol and threat. Once Bryce pledged open defiance, the banners would change atop Drum Tower. Crowned dragon in place of crowned stag. Blood only if required. She finished. "If the men see dragons and their lord kneeling, steel need not sing." Bryce gripped the table edge, knuckles whitening. "And if it sings regardless, then Storm's End will hear an older song," Visenya said, gaze like Forjahit. "Dragons remember melodies men forget." Dawn seeped gray-pink across ramparts as Bryce's horns called assembly. Rhaenys soared above on Stormcloud, wind ripping her braids free, salt spray stinging eyes. Below, rows formed, spears shallow forest at sunrise. Visenya's archers claimed the wall walk unseen by most, cloaks stirring. Rhaenys drew Stormcloud low enough that the gust of his passing rattled banners. Gasps rose, one scream, then silence. She let the dragon wheel overhead, wings blotting first light, before climbing again to hover like judgment. On the ground, Bryce strode before his men. His voice carried, amplified by courtyard stone. "Storm's End stands for the blood of Argella Durandon, for the honor Orys Baratheon swore to keep. Yet the crown you bled for bleeds you dry. Look up. See the promise Robert forgot. Fire and blood given in return for loyalty." Helms tilted skyward. Rhaenys felt their fear, thick as mist. She guided Stormcloud into a spiral descent, landing atop the kitchen's flat roof so stone trembled. Flames guttered from the dragon's nostrils, curling harmless yet visible. "I am Rhaenys Targaryen," she called, voice aided by Valyrian brass in her throat. "Last daughter of the Mad King's line? No, first daughter of the realm's rebirth. Knee or sword? Choose." A heartbeat of hush. Then Bryce knelt, cloak spreading on damp stone. One by one, his men followed, a rustling like cereal bending beneath wind. When the last spear lowered, Visenya's archers revealed crimson undercloaks and knocked arrows not at the soldiers, but at the sky. A salute. Rhaenys dismounted, boots thudding roof tile. She descended an exterior stair to the yard. Stormcloud remained above, gold eyes flickering. She accepted the first kneeling oath. Bryce's voice steady despite sweat on his brow. Others echoed, until the courtyard rang. Visenya appeared at her side. "Done?" "Not yet," Rhaenys murmured. She raised her voice. "Storm's End opens its gates to any who remember why they bled. Robert Baratheon is welcome. Should he come without crown, title, or stolen sword, then shall." Laughter rippled. nervous but real. Rhaenys turned to Visenya. "Send ravens. Tell the marches a storm has changed course." Visenya's smile was blade-sharp. "And the Riverlands? Tell them the storm carries dragonfire." That night they supped in the round hall. Food tasted a victory sweeter for being bloodless. Bryce spoke of grain hidden in forgotten cellars enough to feed 5,000, of ships idle in Rainwood creeks that could ferry men up Blackwater Bay. Rhaenys listened, marking each pledge in memory. But beneath the hum of plans she heard another rhythm, beating wings against dusk. She excused herself and climbed to the parapet. Stormcloud crouched there, tail lashing. Nymeria approached from the north, Visenya atop her. And high overhead, a darker shape, Syrax's, circled with something clutched in talon. Torn cloth fluttering, stag crown rent, a sign delivered by Visenya's command, the fall of one banner, the rise of another. Rhaenys watched until the stars came. Wind carried smell of pine, smoke, and distant thunder. Somewhere beyond horizon, Robert Baratheon drained another cup and laughed. Unaware Storm and Dragon both had turned against him. Let him laugh, she thought, and touch Stormcloud's warm scale. Let him laugh while he may. Tomorrow, the counter-conquest truly began. Ka. The ravens took wing before dawn's gray surrendered to full daylight, black flecks angling north for the Riverlands, east toward the Stepstones, and west across the width of Shipbreaker Bay toward the rain-wet marches. Rhaenys watched them vanish against a horizon bruised violet, thinking of each fluttering quill as an ember of possibility. Bend the world's wind just right and a spark became conflagration. She liked that better than talking of crowns and lineages. Fire was honest about its nature. Visenya found her on the curtain wall above the seaward gate. Salt spray flecked her brow. Nymeria circled far overhead, testing thermals that curved off the massive drum tower, like invisible ramps into sky. "Your dragon's grown vain," Rhaenys said, a half-hearted jape to soften pre-battle tension. "Nymeria was born vain," Visenya answered, gaze tracking her mount. "She only now meets a sky worthy to mirror it." A rare smile ghosted her lips. "The ravens. Do you think Tully still keeps his pact in a secret corner of his ledger? If grief keeps count more faithfully than pride, yes." Rhaenys folded arms across mail-bound chest. "Hoster lost 2 sons at the Trident, one to Robert's hammer, the other to fever after Derry's burning. He gilds the Stad's banner with coin and courtesy, but loss does not obey treasury orders." Visenya grunted. "Let the Riverlords come on then. We'll give them a reason to follow grief." Her eyes found the southern road, a thread vanishing between pine ridges. "Reports place Stannis at Storm's End tomorrow night." Rhaenys's pulse thrummed. "So soon?" A bannerman rode 3 horses to carry the warning. Stannis departed King's Landing the instant Bryce's Raven reached the Red Keep. A fleet accompanies, 15 war galleys under Valerian blue crab colors. The hand seal countersigned the orders. "Aeron himself." Visenya exhaled mist. "John Aeron moves more quickly than Robert, and with colder purpose." "Unfortunate," Rhaenys said. "That purpose burns like pine pitch all the same." She weighed options. Stand siege and risk supplies, or break Stannis at sea with dragonflame. Neither felt elegant. If we sink his fleet before his first trebuchet lands, Robert loses both a brother's counsel and a fleet's worth of oak. And Bryce keeps his walls unscarred, Visenya finished. "I prefer my conquests unmarred." Rhaenys looked up into the morning sky where Nymeria wheeled. Stormcloud paced the battlements behind her, tail flicking. Old Syrax's, half asleep atop the rookery spire, rumbled agreement. 3 dragons, 15 galleys. Pine pitch indeed. "Then we meet Stannis on the water," she decided. "Bryce's men may guard the castle while we remind the narrow sea whose children we are." The harbor at Stonehelm lay cupped between capes, like a chalice fashioned by gods for naval slaughter. Pine-forested bluffs hid a labyrinth of kelp-slick shoals. Only locals dared thread the main channel without sounding pole or pilot's luck. From such confusion, Rhaenys meant to draw Stannis' fleet. Their own small flotilla, 7 swift war cogs and 3 heavy Pentoshi carracks, masked sails behind the headland's curve, decks bristling with oil-soaked bolts. On a ridge above, 50 archers knocked fire arrows into braziers that burned green with wildfire. Bryce had secreted away after Robert's victory feast. Wind blew strong from the south, carrying scent of storm and resin. Rhaenys stood astride storm cloud where chalk cliff fell sheer to water, helm under arm. Below, Visenya paced Nymeira's saddle. Syraxes slept coiled near the archers, wingtips shivering with dream flame. Sunrise stained the sea copper. First banners appeared past the outer shoals, crowned stag within fiery heart. The Baratheon standard modified by Arlor zealot Stannis had lately favored. Rhaenys counted masts with a sailor's instinct. 14, not 15. Had one galley lagged or foundered? No matter. Wind slanted their banners northwest, perfect for sail charge into the Narrows. They flew no scouts, arrogance sailed their prows. Archers lit first shafts. Rhaenys lifted her voice, letting Valyrian syllables crack like forging hammers across morning. Dracarys. Stormcloud hurled skyward, wings sculpting air into thunder. Nymeira followed a heartbeat later. Scream shrill as rent steel. The archers loosed. Fire arcs descended onto pitch-soaked decks. 2 galleys caught at once, sails blossoming into flower petals of flame. Stannis' flagship, Warhammer, thrust ahead, oars biting froth. Captain bellowing. Men scrambled with buckets. Salt water hissed useless on wildfire tongues. Stormcloud banked. Rhaenys felt heat of his gathering breath tremble through saddle leather. She sighted Warhammer's mainmast, golden stag rampant. Took a breath of her own, exhaled calm. Stormcloud vomited white-hot torrent. Mast and sail incinerated, molten droplets sizzling into sea. Screams carried faintly to the cliff. Below the ridge, the hidden cogs burst from concealment. Lashing broadside volleys tipped with tar rag flames. Galleys turned too late, hulls grinding rock just beneath surface. One shattered keel forward, momentum spinning it lengthwise into another. Masts entangled, chaos. Nymeira plunged at deck height, talons shearing through rigging. Visenya lobbed a clay jar, wildfire stolen from King's Landing's secret stocks. Into an open hold. Green explosion roared outward, bodies flung skyward like embers. Rhaenys wheeled Stormcloud up and over, surveying field. 5 galleys now burning, 3 crippled. The flagship floundered, oars hacking at air where sea had receded after a blast. Warhammer's aft castle bristled archers, one standard still waving. Stannis himself? She couldn't tell. A heavy quarrel slammed Stormcloud's left flank, scale splintering. He shrieked, banking hard. Rhaenys tightened reins, adrenaline spiking. A ballista on the flagship's foredeck reloaded, crew frantic. She angled toward it, feeling the deep furnace inside her mount ignite again. Ballista twanged. The bolt kissed empty air. Stormcloud rolled, then answered with flame. A 6 count of heartbeats later, Warhammer's foredeck collapsed inward, molten iron raining. Another ballista shot from midship struck Stormcloud's right wing, glancing harmless. Visenya dove Nymeira upon it, severing the weapon as a hawk birds a hare. In minutes more, fight became rout. Those galleys unburned cut oars to retreat. But caltrop ropes Bryce's smugglers had stretched across the channel fouled hulls. Oars broke, sails luffed, rudders splintered. Syraxes finally woke, lumbering from the ridge with ponderous disdain. Flames curtained his flight path, descending upon floundering hulls in lazy passes. The sea boiled. Warhammer reeled until only the quarterdeck remained afloat. Men leapt into water, some to be plucked by drowning, others by Syrax's tail as he swept low like a living god of old Valyria. Among survivors, Rhaenys sought Stannis' grim visage. Square jaw, close-cropped hair, eyes that judged the world wanting, but saw only smoke and thrashing foam. Flames crackled down to embers on salted wood. Morning sun glimmered through ash motes. Rhaenys hovered above wreckage, breath rasping inside helm. Visenya's voice sounded through speaking trumpet arcane as any maester's tube. The Lord Admiral gone. Lost or drowned, Rhaenys replied, wind stealing half her words. He bears Robert warning now, by sea, or by ghost. A ghost tells truer tales, Visenya quipped, then cut Namira into a spiral climb. Let rumor bear witness. Storm's End still flies. Rhaenys nodded, though her sister could not see. She guided Stormcloud shoreward where archers cheered, wet-faced in firelight. Ash gusted around them like snow. Stannis did not drown. A fisherfolk skiff hauled him, and 30 others from shattered Warhammer. 2 hours after dragons withdrew, he arrived at King's Landing 3 days later, aboard a battered carrack, bearing a single tattered sail. Witnesses claimed he strode the docks in shredded cloak, jaw clenched around words no one dared hear, eyes burning hotter than the flames that had scoured his fleet. Inside Maker's Holdfast, Robert laughed loud enough to rattle stained glass rose windows when his brother stormed the small council chamber smelling of brine and smoke. "Little brother," the king boomed, half mockery, half relief that Stannis lived. "Back so soon? Couldn't you persuade the dragon girls to lay down their wings?" Stannis' reply was cold iron. 15 ships burnt in a morning, 300 men dead. The girls ride monsters Robert can scarcely imagine. And Bryce Baratheon kneels to them. No. Laughter died. Jon Arryn raised a calming palm toward Stannis, then turned mild hawk eyes on Robert. "Storm's End compromised, your grace. The step between news and northern panic shortens." Cersei lounged near the council table, blonde hair falling like spun gold across green brocade. "Your dragons may burn pinewood galleys, but King's Landing holds wildfire enough to drown them in green flame," she drawled. "Wildfire kills city and dragon both." Stannis snapped. "No prophet to immolate your own." Tywin Lannister, golden head glinting, did not smile. "The hand proposes what course?" Jon Arryn's voice held no tremor, though his heart ached remembering foster sons dead to dragonfire long past. "We must recall Lord Mace and the Reach host to the capital. Consolidate strength. Build scorpions upon every wall." "Oh. Imd." Robert snorted. "Hidey behind walls while girls in silver wigs burn my bannermen at will? I beat Rhaegar on open field. I'll beat his sisters too." He slammed his antler-pommeled hammer on table-board, tankard sloshing. "Call every lord able to hold wood or steel. We ride south, crush them, and be done." Jon Arryn met Stannis' eyes. The younger Baratheon's jaw flexed, but he bowed to his king. Yet later, in the Tower of the Hand, quills scratched letters to every loyalist lord. "Gather grain, close harbor chains, watch the skies." Fire fell swift, but winter laid longer siege. Arryn knew both could break a kingdom. In the days that followed the Battle of Stonehelm, Storm's End hummed with transformation. The black stone courtyard, once resonant with Baratheon war cries, now echoed draconic roars as hatchlings practiced clumsy glides between inner walls. Rhaenys walked among hostlers, drilling with new longspear designs, hooks affixed beneath spearheads meant to pull riders from saddles, should traitors to the dragon cause mount horse charge. She allowed such training. Fear grew thin when given weapons against the impossible. She occupied Lord Bryce-Siller. Sunny in late afternoon, yet chilly beneath thick walls, and red letters piled knee-high. Lord Jonas Bracken pledged 200 horse and half his granary. Sir Mark Piper offered river rafts for troop ferrying to Harrenhal if the Blackfish declared likewise. Even Walder Frey, slippery as greased eel, dispatched a politely worded query about marriage prospects for his 23rd daughter. Should dragons return to court? Rhaenys dipped pen, wrote steady replies, playing long game of alliances. Promise little, hint of greater reward later. A dragon's word forged hotter than iron, but she would not overextend. She paused at one missive sealed in dull gray wax. Moat Caelan. The Karstark sigil impressed faint but clear. She slit it, scanned the rough northern script. Lord Rickard Karstark offered sympathy for a lost prince and sorrow for the realms forgetting true kings. He dared not openly break from Winterfell's cautious neutrality, yet 20 casks of northern pitch awaited at White Harbor, if the sisters' fleet risked the distant voyage. Pitch, Rhaenys mused, burned near as hot as dragonflame and could coat a trebuchet stone nicely. She filed it under possible futures. Visenya burst through door without herald, helm under arm, copper hair damp from training field. The Cranogman answered, she said, dropping a mud-speckled scroll atop the desk. Howland Reed sends marsh boats and guides if we promise the neck safe from Ironborn raids. Rhaenys raised a brow. Ironborn have not raided the neck since Euron's uncle captured Moat Cailin, which is precisely why Reed fears their next raid. Visenya wiped sweat. The marshes breed men who count memory longer than dragons count scale. She leaned on desk. I want the neck. Hold it and we split the realm in two. North cannot march south without Reed's say, nor King relieve siege of Harrenhal without longer route. Rhaenys drummed fingers on parchment. And Stannis. He limps home to lick salt wounds. Robert gathers host at King's Landing. Mace Tyrell's banners swell the roads. A siege of Storm's End will follow once they unify. Rhaenys looked to the window where Stormcloud perched on the bastion tower, neck arched. Let them come. We need a symbol, a second victory they cannot ignore. Storm's End holds, but Harrenhal scars hearts. If we take the blackened crown of Harren the Black and raise dragon banners above those melted towers, the realm remembers dragons remade stone once before. Men are wander. Visenya's smile carved sharper than daggers. I'll ready the fleet. The voyage upriver proved less simple than sea assault. The Blackwater narrowed quickly into twisting turns lined by willow and alder, current strong from spring melt. Draft forced heavier ships to anchor below salt pans, while lighter rafts and shallow cogs pressed upriver with oar and pole. Rhaenys rode Stormcloud canopy level, scouting sandbars. Visenya's smaller strike force traveled 2 miles ahead on marsh skiffs crewed by Reed's lean men in green-dyed linen. Spires of Harrenhal rose out of afternoon haze like skeletons of giants. Time had not healed Aegon's burning. Melted stone drooped in grotesque icicles. Towers cracked so wide daylight striped their inner chambers. Yet the fortress still commanded the river crossing, and whoso held it held the body of Westeros by the throat. Garrison barely 400 strong manned massive gates under sigil of house went, bats black on yellow. Lord Garmund remained loyal to Robert out of pragmatism. Whispers said crown debts choked his coffers. Rhaenys preferred coinless loyalties. She circled once, noting Garrison's sparse arbalests. As she peeled off, horns sounded within the walls. High, frantic. Visenya's river skiffs beached beneath ash-sloped buttresses, men scaling collapsed outer wall with grapnels. Green-clad Cranogmen ghosted up sluice channels into Lower Bailey before guards fully rallied. Arbalest quarrel whined. Stormcloud banked, his fire lancing the top of Kingspire Tower where archers clustered round rusted ballista. The roasted stone glowed molten, dripping like candle wax. Men within screamed until screams ceased. At the gatehouse, Visenya's advance team levered chains. The massive portcullis groaned but remained stuck half-raised. Rhaenys landed Stormcloud before it. Flame shot breath severing chain like thread. Gate crashed open on the corpse of its defenders. Riverlords stormed courtyard, Bracken cavalry trampling pockets of resistance. Rhaenys dismounted onto flagstones still warm from dragon breath. Battle lasted minutes. Harrenhal's garrison demoralized, outnumbered. Terrified by memories, Aegon's fire revived. Lord Garmund surrendered personally, helm tucked under arm, face streaked with soot and tears. He knelt. I will bend knee, he said, voice ragged, if you promise my folk food. The crown's grain trains rot on dock cranes from lack of coin. Rhaenys touched the man's shoulder. A dragon is no thief of bread. Keep your small folk fed, your gates open to our banners, and Harrenhal shall find new life. Bam? He sobbed something like gratitude as her boots carried her onward. She mounted the worn steps up to King's Hall. Torchlight flickered across frescoes half melted into grotesque blurs. She felt ghosts stir, warm drizzle of memory. Legend claimed Aegon himself watched stone run like butter when Balerion's fire-kissed tower. As black rain fell. Now she, granddaughter of that heritage, walked within the wound. Visenya joined her near dais where Harren the Black's twisted throne still stood, iron limbs drooping. Without word they clasped hands and climbed. Rhaenys turned to host below. Bracken, Mallister, Piper banners intermingled with Bryce's thunderbolt and Bryce himself, his cloak rimed with ash. She felt moment weighty as chainmail on heart. Visenya released her hand. Storm clouds roar outside filled the hollowed tower, deep and triumphant. Rhaenys lifted arms, the gesture instinct, and host roared answer that shook melted vaults. "Let Robert hear," she called, voice echoing. "Let him hear that Aegon's hall falls once more. Not to stag nor lion, but to the blood that forged it. We do not come to repay fire with fire alone. We come to make the realm remember what justice feels like, hot upon the skin, so none forget again." So none forget again. No banners raised, no horn chorus demanded. They simply cheered, raw. In that moment, Harrenhal belonged more surely than any deed could grant. Messages flew faster than ravens. They flew on traitor tongues, on spymaster whispers, on dreams of small folk who stared skyward at each campfire spark. Within fortnight, talk of the Dragon Sisters filled markets from Old Town to White Harbor. They were said to feed orphans at Storm's End, to melt knights in armor whole, to speak only truth in council, and breathe lies into ash. The realm had lived 9 years with no living dragon. Memory had turned legend to story. Now legend wore leather and mail, and walked living ramparts. Rhaenys slept little. Each night she paced Harrenhal's cracked battlements, listening to toad-croak chorus from waterlogged godswood. Stormcloud curled on Kingspire's melted crown, eye like dying furnace watching road. She cherished quiet hours with her mount. Alone, she allowed doubts whispered by burning stone. One night, torches followed her path. Visenya, cloak drawn tight, silhouette severe. "You bleed your strength with worry," Visenya said without greeting. "I feel it across Fire Dream." "Do you never worry?" Rhaenys asked. "I worry constantly," Visenya answered. "I do not let it poison purpose." She leaned on parapet, gaze wandering across moonlit ruin. "This castle stinks of drowned men and cracked pride. Yet look how easily its loyalty shifted. The realm lost taste for Robert's revels once belly pinched and levy rolled on. Mendawin. Robert fought for Lyanna," Rhaenys said. "He never expected to rule. And so he drinks to forget rule." Visenya sighed. "I do not drink, you do not forget. That is difference one." She looked sideways. "Difference two. We have dragons." Rhaenys' laugh came softer than she intended. "That seems insurmountable. Then stop scaling insurmountable cliffs each night in your mind, sister." Visenya bumped her shoulder, affection as jarring as any reprimand. "We march at dawn to River Run. Blackfish waits on our word. Sleep, or at least pretend to. Then?" Rhaenys watched her depart, cloak vanishing like smoke. She did not sleep. She climbed Kingspire Spiral to where Stormcloud brooded beneath half-moon. She pressed her brow to warm scale, breathing soot-tinged air. Dragon hearts beat slow, deep. She matched breath to pulse until doubt eased. They marched under banners resurrected from dust. Red Dragon of Old Valyria quartered with Bryce's Thunderbolt and Bracken's Stallion. Cranog's skiffs shadowed advance along river. Reed men guided infantry through marsh paths invisible to foes. By the time they reached the Tumblestowe's fords, scouts brought word of a Tyrell outrider host crossing the sea road with intent to reinforce King's Landing. Rhaenys convened council in the open, map weighed by riverstones. Loras Tyrell, favored son though yet unflowered knight, commanded 3,000 cavalry and 5,000 foot, with Lord Mathis Rowan in reserve. They would reach Maidenpool in 7 days, King's Landing in 10 die. Visenya traced finger along map, died. Cut them at Tumblestone Crossing. Narrow bank, deep water. Heavy horse cannot deploy. Light horse outrun dragons, Bracken cautioned. Horse outrun flame windward, Visenya corrected. We hunt leeward. Rhaenys studied prevailing wind. Scribbled in margin. 5 days of steady westerlies predicted. Dragons could strike from east, wind at back. We intercept before Tyrell linked to Aaron's muster, she decided. Win and Riverlands commit fully. Lose. She didn't finish. They rode at dusk, 2 days upriver. Scouts marking Tyrell camps by smoke. At first light of the third day, Visenya's archers occupied Willow stands along south bank. Stormcloud, Namira, and Syraxes crouched behind hills tufted with heather, out of enemy sight. Tyrell vanguard arrived mid-morning. Banners green and gold, golden roses rippling above lances. Loras Tyrell rode forefront, armor polished to mirror sky. Trumpets announced right to cross. Engineers began laying pontoon across swift water. Rhaenys signaled. Dragons rose like breaking dawn. Shadows sweeping cavalry. Horses screamed, bolting, formation shredded. Rhaenys guided Stormcloud low. His breath scorched partially finished bridge, river hissing as planks charred. Visenya's arrows rained into milling foot. Loras rallied swiftly, eyes wide but steady. He formed a wedge, knights bristling lances, outrun by frantic mounts. Rhaenys admired his courage, lamented its waste. She banked. Stormcloud's tail gust toppled first rank into river. Namira dove next, torching supply wagons. Exploding pitch drums sent black flames skittering across bank. Syraxes, ever theatrical, rose to full height above hillside before descending. His roar froze men mid-flight. His landing quaked ground. His breath did minimal harm. Rhaenys had ordered containment of casualties. They needed the Reach's bread, not its ashes. Within an hour, Tyrell Horn surrendered. 3 sad blows echoing across water. Loras, helm dented, knelt before Rhaenys in mud. She accepted his sword, returned it hilt first. "You will ride home," she said. "Tell your father we burn no harvest wagons, slay no child. But if he marches, we answer in kind." Loras's throat bobbed. "My father answers to King Robert." "Kings change," Rhaenys replied. "Bread remains." She patted Stormcloud's shoulder. "Remember the feel of this heat." Sir Loras, and weigh it against stockpiles come winter. He rode away leading remains of host, eyes clouded with thought. Word of the blood-spared victory spread faster than previous carnage. Small folk along King's Road cheered dragon banners, calling sisters, mercy flame. In taverns minstrels sang of silver-haired queens, who scorched steel yet spared fields. The realm, starved of idols, latched quick to new myths. In King's Landing Robert drank harder. He beat 4 knights in tourney yard, cracked ribs of 5th. He ordered double the city gates guard, tripled watch upon walls. Varys whispers suggested flea-bottom folk, now named Stormcloud among their host of gutter gods. Praying dragonfire cleansed debt and hunger both. Robert cursed the whispers, yet they grew. Cersei sharpened politics like knives. She visited the Alchemists' Guild thrice weekly, coaxing maesters of pyromancy with sweet words and sweeter threats. Wildfire production doubled, so did accidents. 2 storerooms exploded, burning 30 civilians, but the Queen blamed saboteurs. Stannis, broken fleet replaced by restless anger, lobbied to commandeer red wine cogs from the Reach. Tyrell balked. Grain shipments would falter. Lords muttered in halls, each imagining dragon ablaze above their own harvest fields. Jon Arryn penned secret letters to Dorne and the Vale, seeking mediation. Replies came slow. The sisters wintered at Harrenhal come first frost. Snow-dusted melted towers, steam rising where old stone still retained heat of ancient conflagration. Dragons loved the place, curling in wind-carved halls. Even shy hatchlings soared through empty window arches. Rhaenys used long nights to study ledgers, wheat tonnage, iron ore from the Westerlands, river trade tariffs. Dragons might win battles, but coin decided sieges. Visenya trained new riders, Bracken twins. Both 14, a Crannog girl small as a bowshaft, and one Silent Storm's end stable boy, whose calm steadied the most skittish hatchling. She made them climb towers blindfolded, ride unbroken colts bareback, bathe in icy pools at dawn before lessons in Valerian command words. Pain first, mastery later. Rhaenys worried the discipline harsh, yet each evening she saw wonder shining in those youths' faces, brighter than frost stars. On long nights feast held when days reached shortest, Rhaenys hosted lords in blackened throne room. Ale flowed, yet moderation reigned. Memory of Tyrell's slaughter remained cautionary. Bards sang ballad of Elenay and Garth, of broken promises not unlike Robert's to the realm. When song ended, Rhaenys rose. The stag lies restless behind stone walls, she told gathered bannermen. He will break come spring. When he does, dragons must meet him with shields of oak and iron, shield of hearts too. She held aloft a hammered circlet, Valyrian steel braided with river gold, forged at River Run's smithy, simple yet gleaming. I do not wear this tonight. She continued, for crown changes nothing until realm itself chooses. I ask each of you ride at dawn to your people. Listen to belly growl and hearth crack and widow's song. If, come spring thaw, they would see dragon banners above King's Gate, bring them to our host. If not, I will bend knee to whichever king can claim their love. Memema. Gasps rippled, whispers swarmed. In the hush Visenya stepped forward, hand upon sword hilt. My sister speaks truth. Fire may forge crown, but only flesh and hope fit it. Rhaenys' heart hammered. This was their gamble, greater than any battle. Surrender crown to win realm's soul. She waited, breath shallow, as lords processed. Bryce Baratheon knelt first, thunderbolt standard dipping. My folk have known only stag banners and starvation under them. They will follow dragon banner that brings field grain. Lord Piper knelt. Then Malister. Then, astonishing, Lord Garmund went. Tears on cheeks. One by one they knelt, until Hall looked field of bowed wheat. Rhaenys felt tears burn. She did not place circlet on brow. She set it upon melted throne, let it gleam reflection of torchlight. Promise, not prize. When spring warmed the river ice into mist, ravens returned thick enough to blot dawn. Messages told of northern unrest, Karstark levies drilling, White Harbor ships provisioning. In the Vale Lady, Anya Waynwood petitioned Aeron to parley with dragon queens. In Dorne, Prince Doran Martell, limp worsened, sent his daughter Arianne to treat a storm's end. The realm shifted underfoot like earth before volcano.ie. Robert could not bide. April dawn saw him ride from King's Landing at head of 30,000. Baratheon? Tyrell? Wild? Estermont? Hayford? Selmy leading King's Guard. Wildfire loaded in cask wagons. Scorpions mounted on ox cart platforms. Stannis marched beside, implacable. Far behind, Cersei remained in city with Joffrey, ordering every potter work night and day, shaping clay pots for guild of pyromancers. Jon Arryn rode reluctantly, yet across his saddle he carried one more letter, sealed in Arryn falcon blue. It bore red wax of urgent mediation. He intended to present it to Rhaenys before battle. Last chance at peace. But peace seldom outraces dragons. Sisters broke winter camp early May. River ice barely thawed. 10,000 foot, marched under 100 dragon-woven banners. 300 knights rode, some on cumbersome destriers, some on Sarnori coursers, purchased with Lyseni gold. Above, 6 dragons flew. Stormcloud, Nymeria, Syraxes, and 3 half-grown mounts who had yet to name themselves in rider hearts. Their shadows dappled budding orchards along Tumblestone. Small folk waving. Rhaenys met Robert's host on ripened grassland south of Blackwater Rush, within sight of ruined fields where Rhaegar once fell. She saw the king then, fat replaced by war training, antler helm gleaming high, warhammer black with new smithing. Memory surged. Crown of stag, death of brother, roar of trident. She swallowed acid of past. Visenya rode Namira to her right. Bryce commanded left flank. Cranogman harried outskirts, moving through threads that choked river's edge. Robert advanced banners partway, then halted, drums stilled. John Arryn rode forward under white peace flag. Rhaenys and Visenya guided Stormcloud down to meet. The hand dismounted, knees creaking. He removed helm, white hair gusting. "My ladies," he greeted, bowing deep. "I come bearing offer. Parley outside tongues of war." Visenya's brows arched. "Speak then." Arryn's eyes shone sad. "King Robert proposes duel by champions. His hammer against your flame, should you name one rider to stand." "Champions," Visenya repeated, voice like winter water. "And thousands of swords watch to do what if champion falls." "Walk away." Arryn swallowed. "You know Robert's heart, fierce but swift to pardon. A trial of arms preserves life of small folk." Rhaenys laid hand on Stormcloud's warm hide. "A duel might settle pride, Lord Arryn, but hunger remains. Debt remains. Wounds of realm fester. How does single swing of hammer cure them? Your dragons laid many wounds," Arryn said quietly. "You cannot absolve by more blood." She met his gaze, saw grief deeper than rivers. "Nor can you halt flame with brandy." She sighed. "Tell Robert we ride tomorrow to parley proper. No duel. No pride. Let me speak to him as one who once stood on Trident's shore and saw life boil away for love of a woman neither of us saved." Arryn nodded, relief flickering. "I will." He mounted, retreated. Visenya turned Stormcloud away after him, voice low. "He will not listen." "Perhaps not," Rhaenys admitted. "But some words must be spoken regardless of ears." Night fell restless. Campfires ringed meadow like embers of greater blaze to come. Rhaenys walked among men, sharing bread, listening to fears. She envied their simple want, return alive to hearth. She wondered how many opposing tents harbored same prayer. All, she suspected. In her pavilion Stormcloud lay coiled outside, guarding. She wrote letter upon letter. To Arya of House Stark rumored fierce. To Doran Martell across desert, to Tywin Lannister unbent. She sealed each with wax shape from melted throne metal, mixture of dragonfire-kissed iron and river gold. When done she sat cross-legged, breathing deep. Visenya entered unannounced as ever. She carried 2 cups of Dornish red. "Drink," she commanded. Easier to face Robert's roar with wine to muffle ears. Rhaenys accepted. They drank in silence. Outside, wind carried faint echo of Stannis drilling sentries. Dragons beat wings somewhere high. "Do you think tomorrow decides all?" Rhaenys whispered. "Nothing decides all," Visenya said. "Not Trident. Not tower fire. Not dragons. We only tilt scales. Realm does rest." "Men?" Rhaenys nodded. "Then tilt we shall." They finished wine. Visenya set cup down, clasped Rhaenys' shoulder. A hold not of comfort but forging steel. "I follow you, sister. Through fire unending." Rhaenys placed her hand over Visenya's. "And I you." Night pressed close. Moon slid behind cloud. Stars flickered like dying embers. Yet in the darkness, 2 sisters shared quiet stronger than dragon's roar. And beyond canvas wall, 6 scaled shapes guarded dreams of a realm waiting rebirth. Okay. Mist coiled off the black water just before dawn, low and silver as a dream still clinging to the earth. Through that shifting veil, Rhaenys could just make out the lantern clusters of Robert's encampment to the south. Tens of thousands of lights strewn like fallen constellations across the flats. Somewhere amid those sparks, the Stag King slept, or drank, or paced, sleepless and restless, as the hour of reckoning crept closer than any crow of cock. She felt him out there the way a storm feels its answering thunderhead, a pressure at the edge of hearing, a taste of iron on the air. Her own camp had begun to stir. Cooks rekindling braziers, armorers hammering rivets, crannogmen gliding ghost-like along the riverbank to check reed-woven snares. The dragons had roosted together for the first time since leaving Harrenhal, a wary shifting pile of wings, and smoke at the shallow ridge where her pavilion stood. Stormcloud faced east, greeting the pale blush that promised sunrise. Namira half dozed, one golden eye slit to monitor the bustling mortals below. Syraxes, ever the ancient lord, crouched away from the others with wings mantled like a cathedral roof, steam furling from cracked marble nostrils each time he exhaled. Rhaenys had slept scarcely an hour, but the sleeplessness felt earned rather than punitive. She rinsed her hands in a basin and let the chill bite, a reminder her blood still belonged to flesh, not legend, and dressed in dusk-dyed brigandine, shot through with thread-thin Valyrian steel rings. Over that she settled a plain leather jerkin, then a cloak of deep wine red clasped at throat, with a dragon wrought in hammered copper. Visenya had forged the clasp herself months earlier at Dragonstone. Only a clasp, only a small gesture of sisterly craft, yet it weighed on Rhaenys like a promise she dared not break. At the pavilion flap she paused, breathing. Visenya waited outside already armed. Scale hauberk, the color of old ash, hair slicked into a tight braid, sword Dawnbringer slung across back in minimalist harness. She offered a cup of something steaming. Mint ginger, drop of Myrish fire wine, keep stomach from eating itself. Rhaenys accepted, sipped, winced at the bite. Your own concoction? Learned from a Lysini sellsale who claimed it could keep a corpse marching. Visenya scanned horizon with wolfish focus. Scouts say Robert finished arraying his second line an hour after midnight. They fly Lannister red within the center. Tywin's gold flows where his men do not. I counted 4 scorpion frames being carted forward under tarp. Dendoa. 4. Rhaenys shook head. More will follow once his engineers feel secure. Not if Namira ruins their appetite. A sharkish grin, gone as swiftly. You still mean to parley? I gave Aaron my word. Visenya silent spoke, and your word is costly. Rhaenys set the cup aside. Walk with me. They descended the ridge to a vantage point overlooking river. The land here formed a gentle concave bowl, low grasses interspersed with stands of alder. Early summer's first buds jeweled branches in pale green. Between them rolled a light, steady wind from the northwest, cool enough to flutter the banner lines but not enough to raise dust. Perfect conditions for archery, terrible for Robert's heavier armored infantry. Rhaenys could almost hear Sir Barristan Selmy noting the same. She traced the mental board. Bryce's Stormlanders formed left, braced by Crannog pike hidden knee-deep in river shallows. Should Robert push cavalry flank, hooves would founder in mud unseen. The Riverlords held center under Lord Piper's bold banner. Spears 13 ranks deep, archers half again as many behind them, shielded by wicker screens daubed in fire-retardant clay. On right, Visenya's newly blooded hatchling riders served as quick reserves, though Rhaenys hated risking them so soon. But war rarely bowed to her preferences. Beyond that, the dragons were her sword of decision, yet also the symbol Robert most wished to break. She must wield them sparingly, lest wildfire or scorpion quarrel find fatal mark. Your eyes catalog worry, Visenya murmured. Worry is catalog, Rhaenys returned. It tells me which line fails first. A line fails only if given permission. Visenya scanned her face. But the parley may spare one of those lines from failing at all. Rhaenys let breath cloud. If Robert has even a splinter of the boy who loved Lyanna, perhaps he'll hear. Visenya's lips peeled at the suggestion of hope. A splinter, yes, enough to draw blood. A trumpet call, not her own, pealed from the south. The mist had thinned. In its place rose a white banner flanked by 2 smaller bearing, the crowned stag and the falcon of House Arryn. A small party, maybe 24, wound up the shallow rise between armies. She recognized Jon Arryn's silver hair at the forefront, guards close behind, and beside him, taller, broad as a bear despite the diet of cups and feasts, Robert. The king wore armor blackened to a mirror finish, inlay of golden antlers radiating from breastplate center. At his hip rested the warhammer of legend, steel head studded with rubies, haft wrapped tight in bullhide. His helm, tucked under one arm, bore horns so wide it must be showpiece rather than serviceable. Even at distance, his grin was theatrical. He had come himself then, rather than send a champion. That alone surprised Rhaenys. She signaled camp trumpets. Her own white banner lifted. Visenya stiffened. I dislike this already. I know. Rhaenys touched her wrist. Stay close, but unseen. If Robert loses patience, dragons may win diplomacy by terror alone. Visenya nodded once, ghosted away to where Nymeria crouched low among gorse, ready to spring. Rhaenys mounted Stormcloud bareback, trusting the dragon's calm, and guided him down into the shallow valley. She refrained from flight. Arriving on foot allowed talk, not spectacle. Stormcloud paced with slow authority, tail brushing grass. As they neared halfway, Robert halted, brushed off Jon Arryn's cautioning hand, and strode forward alone, until perhaps 30 paces separated King from Dragon Queen. Morning sun broke the last of the mist then, spilling gold over field, hallowing Robert in light like some half-remembered hero of songs. He saw it too, she guessed. His grin widened as if fate itself crowned him. His first words boomed like tavern gongs. I should have brought a keg, girl. Warm talk requires ale. Rhaenys dismounted. Stormcloud settled behind, eyes fixed on Robert with predator stillness. She inclined her head. Ale is poor company where blood may flow, your grace. Blood always flows, dragon or none. Robert rested hammerhead in grass, hands on pommel. But I'll drink with you after, if you swear fealty this hour. Trade claws for cups. The claws protect more than my cause. Rhaenys folded arms over chest. I've come to ask how many sons and brothers must feed the grass before your pride loosens its belt. Robert barked a short laugh. My pride? You set ships afire, seat lords in castles that burned my friends, raise banners that recall madness, and call it my pride? You starve the realm on tourney purses and coins spent chasing ghosts, Rhaenys shot back. Small folk hunger, I. Smithies shut. Debts drown lords, who once backed your crown. Is that victory? No. Robert's grin faded. Small folk always hunger. Kings cannot stomach every beggar's story. Kings exist for those stories, she said quietly. Else what justifies crown? Behind Robert, Jon Arryn approached, voice placating. We might speak terms before too many barbs fly. Terms? Robert exploded. There's but one. She yields dragons. She cedes Storm's End. She kneels. Rhaenys shook her head. I will kneel to any ruler who feeds the realm and honors its dead truths. Show me such rule, I bend. Robert hefted the hammer one-handed, an ease hinting old strength. I showed rule on the trident. You showed wrath on the trident, she corrected. Rule requires more. And what do two girls bred of wildfire know of rule? Behind Rhaenys, Stormcloud hissed. Sulphurous breath seeping between fangs. Robert swung hammer up to rest across shoulders, unafraid. I see your monster's teeth, but dragons bit dust before on my field. Rhaenys steadied Stormcloud with thought touch. One, she extended palm, fingers splayed. One proposal remains. We retreat to Dragonstone. You lower taxes, forgive half debts, dismiss half tourneys for 3 harvests. Let grain trade recover. In 5 years hold a great council to let the realm decide its king. Yours to defend, mine to contest fairly. I will swear no assault in interim. No. Jon Arryn inhaled, hope flickering. Robert spat into grass. Great council, to stage another farce where prattle outweighs steel. I spoke my claim in steel once and won. I'll not hand throne to maesters' quills or dragon girls' dreams. Then the only claim left is bone, Rhaenys said. And tomorrow the field will drink. Robert's eyes darkened. So be it. He started to turn but paused. Expression twisting oddly. Anger, regret, something else. Rhaenys. The use of her name startled her. Rhaegar sang of you once. He shifted heavy shoulders. He said you walked gardens as if blooms bowed to you. Pain lanced. Memory of brother plucking harp strings on summer night. She swallowed. Gardens burn easily, your grace. Robert murmured. They do. His gaze flicked to Stormcloud. Mind those blooms, girl. When they burn, the ashes blow far. He strode back to his line, leaving Rhaenys with Wind and Dragon and Ache. Visenya rejoined her atop ridge as sun cleared horizon. Well, he will not yield. Nor did we expect. Visenya's mouth set. His army marches at noon. Scouts spotted Estermont skirmishers moving to flank our left by the river's curve. They seek shallow crossing. They'll find Crannog stakes waiting. Rhaenys rubbed temples. But scorpions worry me more. The lines of sight from his front plateau give them height advantage. I can smoke their artillery with Nymeria and 2 hatchlings. Visenya laid map on crate. Stabbed finger at plateau. Here and here. Quick strikes. Flame stoneworks, not men to scatter crews. Then acceptable if you keep arcs unpredictable. Rhaenys scanned troop placements. Meanwhile, Piper pushes Pike forward in echelon. Force Robert to choose between shattering formation or exposing archers to dragon. Visenya tapped wider circles around plateau. And you? I stay high with Stormcloud, ready to break whichever line falters first. Mind flicked to Robert's last glance. Mind burned it away. Camp erupted around them as horns ordered companies to assemble. Rhaenys mounted Stormcloud from Ridge's highest rock. Below, Lord Piper's drummer began slow cadence. Foot soldiers formed blocks amid flurry of banners. Stormcloud lifted, neck stretched, welcoming morning thermals. Rhaenys felt his heart thunder through scales. In seconds, they were above treetop, wind singing through braided hair. From this height, the battlefield unfolded like gaming board. Robert's black tide advancing in disciplined rows, gold roses of the reach bright amid dark, scorpion frames angled upward, crews cranking cables. Rhaenys nudged Stormcloud into rising spiral. Show presence, not yet breathe flame. Let them stare, let tension sap spear arms. She watched as Visenya's trio swooped low from west. Nymeria first, her bronze wings tolling like cathedral bell when sun struck. 2 hatchlings followed haphazard arcs dash. A whoosh. A flame-lit plateau. Smoke clouds blossomed, drifting across scorpions. Crews scrambled. Some abandoning to stamp smoking tarps. A single quarrel lanced skyward, missing widely. Robert's horn sounded answer. Heavy horse under Renly's bright green crest surged left toward muddy flats, perhaps hoping hatchlings would panic. But the stakes Crannogmen had driven stood half submerged. First rank smashed into them, splintering, tossing riders. More screams than challenge. Visenya peeled off, satisfied, as Nymeria banked steep and soared away before archers truly found range. Rhaenys saw 2 hatchlings retreat, wingtips smoking, but none felled. Now Robert's infantry clashed with Piper's pike. Sounds below reached her as muted thunder. Metal meeting ashwood, shields splintering, throats crying. She held Stormcloud in uneasy sore, studying line for weakness. Piper's leftmost rank wavered where Tyrell halberdiers pressed heavy. Bryce's Stormlanders angled to reinforce, but Estermont Knights forced through Crannog stakes farther south, threatening flank. Time to cut. She tipped Stormcloud into dizzying dive, felt stomach lurch. Wind shrieked in ears, cloak snapping. At 200 feet, she pulled tight to horizontal, racing above friendly ranks who cheered as shadow passed. Into enemy gap. She thundered, eyes on Estermont banner, white sea turtle on green. Stormcloud inhaled. She loosed. Flame gushed not as solid beam. She willed a wide cone, catching foremost horses, melting line into chaos. She counted 2 heartbeats, then clamped mouth. Char and smoke blossomed. Men scattered, leaving a gaping crescent. Bryce's cohorts charged, sealing breach with shield wall. Up, up. She coaxed Stormcloud away before arrows regained composure. She saw 3 flaming bolts sail after, none near. But further north, another Scorpion crew had righted their machine, now pivoting toward Namira's return dive. Visenya wheeled, but cable locked, quarrel released. Giant steel spear hurling skyward. Rhaenys cursed, urged Stormcloud, "Intercept?" Too far. She cried, warning across Mindspeak link Visenya sometimes sensed, but distance blurred. Namira banked left. Quarrel grazed outer wing membrane, tearing long gash. Namira screamed, wobbling. Visenya clung like barnacle, guided her mount upward to safety behind crest, out of range. Rhaenys' heart hammered double. Hatchling shrieked, sensing Elder's pain. She refocused, killed the Scorpion. Stormcloud dove again. This time, no caution. Flame streamed. Wood burst and iron fused. Crew perished. She circled once to ensure ruin, then climbed steep, lungs aching with second-hand exertion. Below, battle lines fractured everywhere. Robert himself entered fray at spear point of reserve. She saw the antler helm rearing above chaos. Hammer pulping a shield rim, each swing felled a man. His household knights closed around like sharks. She guided Stormcloud above him, tempted to dive, end war in one breath. But infantry intermingled too tight. Friendly men risk incineration. Robert seemed to know. He roared laughter, hammered onward. On her right, Tyrell halberds routed Piper flank. Dragons absent left them bold. She hissed to Stormcloud. They banked over Tyrell banners. Yet even as flame formed behind fangs, she spotted civilians amid pack. Camp followers pressed on to field by retreat. Flame there would burn innocence. She aborted dive, rising instead to terrify with roar alone. Tyrell's line faltered. Piper rallied. Sudden piercing horn, 3 blasts from south. Crannog signal of unexpected threat. She pivoted. A fresh wave of cavalry, dark blue banners with silver fish. Tully. But wrong angle. They charged her right flank, not Robert's. Men of the Trident loyal to Crown after all. They'd marched unseen along eastern woods. Battle now a whirlpool. Casualties mounting. Advantages seesaw.io. She found herself shouting commands to captains far below they could scarcely hear. Only dragons still lent clarity, dominating whichever sector they touched, yet spread too thin to hold all lines. High above, Namira reappeared, wings sewn crude stitches with chain and leather. Visenya led her slowly back into engagement, ignoring pain. Brave. Foolish. Rhaenys signaled formation join. They found each other mid-sky amid arrow clouds. Visenya's voice reached across the wind. Robert presses center. I break his entourage, you spear. Rhaenys nodded. They descended together. Namira first, despite wound. Stormcloud behind breathing bursts to deter archers. Namira roared, gliding only 10 feet above ground, wings scything air. Robert's guard ducked. Some horses reared. Visenya flung a jar, clay, filled with chalk dust and goose feathers. It shattered, opaque plume blinding knights. Rhaenys urged Stormcloud through that plume. Robert emerged, swinging, but could not see. She felt moments stretch. If flame fired now, his flesh would cook. War ended. She inhaled, and saw Lyanna Stark's crypt statue behind her eyelids, weeping stone tears. Stormcloud's breath caught, held. Instead, she whipped reins. The dragon's tail lashed outward, 100-foot mace. It struck Robert's helm off, sent him sprawling sideways in mud, stunned but alive. Thunderous cheer from her own lines, horrified cries from his. But Rhaenys did not linger. She climbed out before archers could knock. Visenya circled Namira overhead, daring quiver arms. On ground, Stannis spurred forward, helm lost, desperation raw.d. His men formed protective ring, hauling Robert upright. Blood coursed from brow, yet he shook loose, bellowing. The hammer rose again, stubborn to death. The sun stood high now, heat oppressive. Both armies flagged. And then, distant horns to north. Another force. Rhaenys squinted. Standard of blackfish leaping silver on red. Sir Brynden Tully. Yet the fish rowed opposite direction, banners reversed, arriving to fight Robert. She couldn't parse at distance. Minutes of suspense ended as newcomers slammed into the cavalry that had flanked her right. Cheers from Riverlords announced ally. So Brynden had split from Edmure's earlier loyalty. Battle pendulum swung again. Stormcloud fatigued. Flame reserves dwindled. Nymeria flagged. Syrax is still strong but heavy, his flight slower. She directed him to hold rear as deterrent. Grounds turned to churned gore. Bodies carpeted bank, banners tattered. Smoke of scorched siege carts, painted sky gray-brown. Yet neither side broke entire. It stood at stalemate of exhaustion when sun dipped west. Twilight approached. Rhaenys convened quick council near makeshift hospital grove. Visenya's cheek streaked with soot, eyes bloodshot. Bryce limped bearing cut to thigh. Piper's breastplate dented inward like kicked bucket. Yet spirits, strangely, high. They had not lost. She listened to reports. Casualties severe but bearable. Robert's scorpions burned or disabled. Tyrell host pulled back. Blackfish defect, stabilized flank. Robert's own injuries unknown but rumored serious concussion. Night soon, both sides would withdraw to camps. But dragons needed rest, men water. Tomorrow would resume. She thanked commanders, dismissed to triage. Alone, she sat on fallen elm, unstrapped gauntlets, pressed knuckles to brow. Choices replayed, not burning Tyrell for innocence. Tail strike instead of flame on Robert. Right choices? Realm might judge. Stormcloud loomed above, nosing her shoulder. Rumble question. She leaned into scale, letting heat soothe. Cloth rustled. Jon Arryn approached carrying lamp. His face slumped with grief. May I? She inclined. He knelt beside, joints cracking. Robert's skull not broken, despite half the realm praying either way. A weak jest. He sighed. Stannis keeps him from riding tonight. I could have killed him, she said. Yet, you chose not. I thought of Lyanna, she whispered. Her grave does not need more ghosts. Arryn studied her a long while. That mercy may win what dragons cannot, child. He handed small scroll. Sir Brynden asked me deliver this. He fights now for you. Not because of dragons, because he saw you spare peasants when flame was easier. Rhaenys opened scroll. Quick script. House Tully pledges majority once Edmure sees sense. Your justice outshines crown. B. A small weight, immense import. Arryn rose. I will take Robert home if he allows it. He will not, Rhaenys predicted. Then perhaps realm itself must carry him. He bowed low, hand of the king to rebel queen, and returned into gloom. She sat until stars pricked sky. War still pulsed across fields in groans of wounded crackle of distant watchfires. Yet wind smelled cleaner than dawn before, less of pride, more of turned soil ready for sow. Visenya joined, dropped beside with sigh. Together they watched Stormcloud and Nymeria settle in ring around weary camp. Tomorrow? Visenya asked. Tomorrow, Rhaenys echoed. But not end. Only next stone and wall we're building. No. Then sleep. Build mortar in dream. They lay back on moss, pauldrons for pillows, gazing at constellations. Above, one star streaked west. Omean some maester might chart. Rhaenys closed eyes, felt earth rotation carry them onward into unwritten shapes. Dawn second day, crimsoned horizon, reflecting in slick mud pooled between bodies. Neither side advanced, both too battered. Trumpets instead called mediation. Astoundingly, Ser Barristan Selmy rode alone, bearing white staff, no arms save ceremonial sword. He halted midway, lifted visor, voice carrying. By honor of the King's Guard, I plead pause to gather dead, succor wounded, treat with ladies of dragons for terms less bloody than last sun. Rhaenys mounted Stormcloud, approached with Visenya flanking. She saluted the old knight. He bowed from saddle, respect unfined. My king bleeds and hears ghosts, Selmy said softly. Realm cannot bleed forever with him. Speak with Stannis. He commands for present. Stannis came, austere in battered plate, jaw clenched. His eyes bled red with sleeplessness, but flashed calculation. He offered no courtesies, only blunt terms. Robert evacuated to King's Landing for healer's care. Crown placed in regency under council of equals, until great council could be convened within year. Dragons withdraw to Dragonstone and storms end as security. Hostilities cease. Visenya bristled. Regency of equals conveniently headed by you, I suspect. No, Stannis said. By Jon Arryn, trusted by both. Rhaenys watched his face. The man despised half measures, yet here he offered one. Exhaustion carved compromise. I will agree, she said. If taxes are halved, debts forgiven 1/3, and Wildfire's stores destroyed under Septon witness. Stannis' jaw ticked. Wildfire guards the capital. It endangers children. She countered. It endangers dragons, Visenya corrected. Stannis' mouth thinned. Yet after long silence he nodded once. I will see it done. In exchange, dragons swear not to fly within bowshot of the city walls during regency. Agreed. Thus truce inked intent of mingled banners. Robert, feverish, allowed stretcher only after learning the dragon girl had called Flower of Flame had spared him again. He muttered curses but lapsed quick to dreaming. Armies withdrew in slow processional. Dead, buried in mass trench, blessed by septons and red priests alike. Dragons patrolled skies but breathed no fire. Farmers crept from huts to salvage armor, seeds from ransacked wagons. And across realm, ravens flew louder still, not of victory nor defeat, but of an impossible peace brokered on battlefield scorched yet so ready. Some doubted it would hold. Others prayed. High atop Kingspire Tower at Harrenhal 3 weeks later, Rhaenys received a carved weirwood box sealed in veil blue. Inside, Robert's heavy stag crown wrapped in doeskin, a note penned in Jon Arryn's firm hand. By order of the convalescent king, held in trust until realm decides. She lifted crown. Sunlight caught antlers. She set it not on her brow, but upon melted throne's edge again, next to her Valyrian steel circlet. 2 crowns, waiting judgment. Stormcloud coiled behind, huffing warm air. Visenya stepped from stairwell, bandage still around bicep, where stray bolt grazed days earlier. She saw crown, arched brow. Symbolism breeding like rabbits now. Symbols feed hope. Rhaenys reached, clasped sister's hand, placed it on crown. We share burden, whatever shape it takes. Visenya squeezed. Then let's start by feeding bellies. Bryce sends word of surplus grain landed at King's Landing docks. Free distribution. Realm whispers dragon mercy again. We'll turn whispers to chorus. They walked balcony edge, wind teasing cloaks. Below, young dragons chased each other through melted arches, shedding sparks. Men repaired shattered ramparts. Somewhere minstrels tuned lutes for evening, feast honoring both living and dead. Rhaenys inhaled scent of new-cut timber, fresh bread, forge smoke. All smelled like beginning. Stormcloud roared sudden joy, wings beating gusts that flared banners anew. Visenya laughed, surprising even herself. And in that high moment between ruin and rebirth, 2 sisters of fire saw at last the shape of the realm they might forge. Not with fear alone, nor with mercy alone, but with a balance only dragons and dreamers dared imagine. Night would come again, battles again, politics twisting as vines, but morning stood golden, and for the first time since Trident's bloody water, the realm beneath felt ready to grow.